We are very fortunate in having Deacon Anthony Stewart with us. Anthony doesn't have much on his plate because he's only going to be made a priest tomorrow. So I want to let you know that he's going to be ordained tomorrow. And he was able to participate with us as a deacon and read the gospel last night, etc. So without further ado, I have to step aside and let the man of action take over.
You can hear me.
Now there it is. Test.
Maybe if I hold it up. Here we go. Is this okay? All right, so my name's Deacon Anthony Stewart. I am from about an hour west of here in McEwen, Tennessee. It's a small little town just on the Tennessee River. I was born and raised there. Family goes back to my great-grandparents went to the same high school I did. So it's very much. In February, I came home from Rome. I was at the North American College. I came back to Deacon at Bishop Spalding's installation and consecration as bishop. And while I was home, the Williamson County SERRA Club asked me to give my vocation story. And I guess they liked it so much, they asked me to give it to the whole world. So here I am. It actually begins, I was talking to a step-uncle a few years ago, and he was telling me a story about how my stepfather became Catholic. And it was very, I really couldn't believe it, because I looked back and I saw the providence of God in the midst of the tragedy. And I didn't tell the people from Williamson County this part of it, but I will tell you all. So back in 1950, there was a man, I don't know his name, and I don't know where the car crash was, but that happened. All I do know is that he was a Catholic. And one of his good friends went to his funeral liturgy and was so moved by that funeral liturgy that he became Catholic, and then had his wife become Catholic, and his 6 children became Catholic. And so just keep that in mind, those 6 children becoming Catholic out of that tragedy, like 70-some years ago. Well, like I said, I'm 27 years old, born and raised in McEwen, Tennessee. My parents, unfortunately, divorced when I was about 6 years old. My father was an alcoholic, and my mom saw it best that she get me, my brother, and my sister out of that home. And in retrospect, it was the right decision. After the divorce, she remarried one of those 6 children that became Catholic. She became Catholic, my brother became Catholic, my sister became Catholic. I did not become a Catholic. I was a stubborn 8-year-old. So what happened was I actually began going to CCD. I went for quite some time, but I staged a plan. I liked staying with my grandmother as much as I could because I always wanted to be an only child. I wanted all the attention, and she gave it to me. So one night I stayed the night with my grandmother, and I knew I would just pitch a fit when my mom came to pick me up to go to Mass. And I pitched a fit, and my grandfather and grandmother took up for me and said, "Let the boy go where he wants to go," and my mom let that happen. Also at the council of the priest said, "Look, Angel is my mother's name," and said, "You can't force him to become a Catholic. He has to choose it himself." And so from that point on, my grandmother would pick me up every morning, and I would continue and go to a Wesleyan church service with my grandmother. It gets a bit more complicated because even growing up, if you know kind of what's very common in our world today, that with divorced parents, on one weekend you're with your father, and one weekend you're with your mother. And so when I was with my father, I would actually go to a Methodist church because his mother was Methodist, and she would take me to church when I was with my father. And then whenever I was with my grandmother, I would go to this Wesleyan church, so I went back and forth every other weekend. So yeah, life went on that way for quite some time. The only Mass I was required to go to was midnight Mass, and I haven't missed a midnight Mass since I was about 8, 9 years old. That was a tradition, and my mom said, you can do that at least. And I did it pouting the whole time. So yeah, life went on. I grew up. I did not like my stepfather at all, because I knew deep down that I wanted a perfect family. Because I knew if I had a perfect family, then I would be a whole lot more wholesome. I would be a whole lot more confident. And when a family is broken, there's a lot of insecurities that come in. There's a lot of things that just breaks the family. And you can see that God intended a husband and wife to stay together for the good of their children. And I know it is what it is. We live in the world we do. But God, again, can bring goodness, can bring holiness out of tragedy, like He did in my life, beginning with that car crash, and who knows even before that. So life went on, and I got in a huge argument with my stepfather. Actually, growing up, I called him the guy my mom married. He was not worthy of being called my stepfather, because I loved my dad. I was a dad's boy, but unfortunately, my father did not be father. I grew up, though, with a great contradiction in myself. I grew up loving the Tennessee Titans, and I hated it. I grew up loving the Tennessee Vols, and I hated it. I grew up loving the Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, but I hated it. I grew up loving to play golf, but I hated it. You might ask, why did I hate it? Because my stepfather loved all of those things, and I was becoming the man that I hated. And now I'm Catholic. So there was a lot of reconciling to myself, trying to grow up and wanting to be more like my father, but I was becoming more like my stepfather. So life goes on. I did get in that big argument with him. My room was messy, and I hated it when he would tell me what to do. Because I knew that my father should be the one telling me to clean my room. I knew my father should be telling me, punishing me. And each time he would punish me, I would just feel so just broken. Because it would always remind me, why is not my father correcting me? So a big blow up happened. And my mom said, you know, Anthony, I'm gonna send you to a counselor. You really need to talk to someone. And I knew I did. And I agreed to it. I did. And she said a few weeks later, I've got you an appointment with the parish priest. I don't know why I went. I really don't know why. Only by the grace of God that I went. And I went and started talking to the parish priest at that time. And I was, one meeting turned into two into three, and I could just tell that my life was beginning to just become a lot happier, a lot more joy. And I was just thinking, I was like, if there's something to this Catholic priest, there must be something to this Catholic church. And if I turn away from it, I'd just be stupid. So the story gets even more complicated, because my mom really wanted me to become a Catholic. She said she's always prayed for me to become a Catholic. I think of her a lot like a St. Monica and a St. Augustine. Although I wasn't that bad. So, I started RCIA, but I did not want my mom to know she was getting what she wanted. There's two masses at St. Patrick's in McEwen. There's a vigil mass and there's a Sunday morning mass. And I would find out when my mother was going to Mass. And if she went to the 5 o'clock Mass, I would go to the 9 a.m. And this went on until up to the point of the rite of election. I really hid it that long, for about 8 months. I don't know how in a small town, because things go around. So, my aunt also is Catholic, and my name came up in the bulletin. Congratulations to Anthony Stewart. night of election at St. Henry's Church in Nashville, and my mom didn't see it. But then my aunt, she calls up, she says, "I didn't know Anthony was becoming a Catholic." I was like, "I didn't either." I only learned about this in retrospect because I show up for the rite of election. I got a ride on my own to St. Henry's, and my whole family is on the front pew. And it was quite frustrating. I was still not happy. But in the end, I got back to my mom because she always said, once I became a Catholic, and I was quite an uber Catholic, as you can see now, that she always said, "Anthony, I prayed for you to become a Catholic, but never this Catholic." So I became Catholic in 2009, my senior year of high school. And then I went to Aquinas College here in Nashville for 2 years. It's a small liberal arts college that was ran by the Nashville Dominicans. I did 2 years there, and then I transferred up to the Pontifical College Josephina in Columbus, Ohio. And I did 3 years there, and I just got back 6 days ago from the North American College in Rome. And then in 20 hours, I will be laying down my life to be a priest, which I'm really... So, looking back at it all, why do I want to be a priest? And what I just told you about in my life. I read in a magazine once, it was in a GQ magazine, there was an interview by Stephen Colbert. And he had a lot of tragedy in his life. And his father and brother died in a plane crash. But Stephen Colbert is really a man of faith, he's Catholic. And they asked him, "How are you so joyful? How are you so happy in the midst of all this suffering that has taken place in your life?" And he just, the way the interview went, he sat there and he thought for a minute, and he said, "Well, you know, you've got to learn to love the bomb. You've got to learn to love the explosion." And he said, "Boy, did I have a lot of bombs go off in my life, but I learned to love it." It's a bit of a mysterious thing because we don't like pain, we don't like suffering. But the beautiful thing about our faith is that Jesus Christ enters into our weakness. Our weaknesses, our explosions, our bombs, wherever they are, becomes the very entry point in which God enters into our lives. And once He enters into that point, He resurrects it. But He can only do that if we let Him enter in. And so the beautiful thing about the Catholic faith is that Jesus Christ became man. And I think we as Catholics need to hold on to that because Jesus is one of us. That can sound cliche sometimes, but it's of utmost importance. And that's our joy and that's our hope. And so, since God and Jesus and the priesthood and the Catholic Church has given me this great gift of hope, where I was as a young boy, where it all began, as far as I know, in 1950 in a car crash, and then my parents' divorce, and then my father's death when I was 15 years old. You know, in the eyes of the world, without Jesus Christ, without the faith, I should be really just sad and depressed. But I have a lot of joy. I am excited about tomorrow. And that's something I want to share because my story is not all that unique. Each one of us here have our bombs. Each one of us here have our weaknesses. But we have hope. We have Jesus Christ. And that's the message that I want to take for the rest of my life as a priest, to give people that hope, the joy of the resurrection. So that begins tomorrow. I will be at Holy Family Catholic Church in Brentwood. That's where I'll be, effective July 1st in 2 days. And I'm looking forward to taking that message there to the good people of Brentwood and wherever the Holy Spirit guides me in the coming years of my life. So I was thinking, so I was in Rome. I actually showed up in Rome just a bit after Pope Francis was elected, but many of you may have watched that. And I close with this because prayer is so important. It sustains us, and we never should forget praying. But when he came out on the balcony there after he was elected Pope, he said, "Buonasera," good evening. And then he said, he bowed down and he asked them all to pray for him. So if I could just take 15 seconds of your time, I'll stop talking, and if you could all just say a silent prayer for me as I go tomorrow to lay down, that would give me a great confidence as I continue on. So I'll wait 15 minutes and I'll keep the time. Thank you.
This is another taste of Nashville. With that, I'd like to open it to questions. Anyone who would like to ask a question, and if someone would take the mic to the individual asking the question, that would be great. You can step out in the aisle, that'd be great.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you,
And
David.
second of all, the most important question is, will your mother be at the ordination?
Yes, she will, and I'll be quite happy about it.
David from Houston.
Hi,
Were you
David.
ultimately able to reconcile that your mother perhaps did the right thing, taking you and your siblings away from that disease situation with your dad?
Yeah, I certainly was, because growing up, I was very, I couldn't reconcile. I always told this to my mother. I said, "Mom, you promised in sickness and health, and the good times and bad, until death do us part." And I was like, "Mom, you never said the caveat, well, if you become an alcoholic, or if I find out you're an alcoholic." And so I was very harsh on that. I just couldn't reconcile it, because I believe in marriage as an institution that God created to be permanent. It's a sign of Jesus' fidelity to the church. And so I had to come to reconcile that and soften my heart, because then I realized it was a difficult situation, sure. And the house would have been may have been worse, and it probably would have been worse, because my father would get violent at times, and yeah, and so it's just a mess. It really was a mess. And so realizing that she was looking out for the good of her children, and my mom always she put her kids first, and she did that ultimately for the three of us. And in retrospect, I'm grateful for that. And again, if I didn't reconcile that, I wouldn't be here today. And it's in finding God in the messiness of that all, and really accepting Kevin, my stepfather, accepting that, because without Kevin, I would have never been introduced to the Catholic faith. And go Titans, go Balls, go Cards.
I'm just wondering, with your father, has he reconciled himself to turn things around? He's deceased now?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, so my father died in 2005, so 13 years ago, on December 28th. I saw him. At that point, he hadn't, but I have, because he died a bit from the effects of just the disease that he lived with. But we have hope as Christian people that he has that in wherever his soul is right now. So, yeah.
He has a beautiful son, and I'm sure that there's a lot of good in him, and I pray for him too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sure.
Question way in the back. Could you step up here? Come on up.
I'll be glad to yell.
Oh, okay, you can yell. All right, go ahead.
Just have one question.
Sure.
Sounds like your stepfather would make a great SERRA. Does he consider SERRA?
He would, but he doesn't have any money. Sure.
I was wondering about your siblings, if they resented that you didn't have to go to Mass. I mean, did that cause a problem with you and your siblings? And are they still in the church?
Sure. Yeah, my older sister, so I have an older sister. We have three. My older sister, Brooke, she's 32. She has 2 children. They both go to St. Patrick's Catholic School. I see that my vocation in me becoming Catholic has kind of lit a fire under there. And and my brother, he as well is, he went to St. Patrick's School. He went to school there. No, they weren't. It's not. I think it was the age difference. So my brother was too young to really accept and grow attached to my father. So it was easy transition for him to kind of accept Kevin, my stepfather. But I was older. I was 8, 9, and that's kind of a crucial time when a boy is identifying with his father and attaches. My dad can be your dad, or something really to that. He's invincible. And then my sister, she was a bit older. So there was a point that she, I think, already was doing her thing. So, the human person is very complex. And so I think it happened at the worst point it could in my life. But then again, maybe at the best point in my life. So no, they're doing well. Aaron is a nurse. My sister's a nurse, and my mom's a nurse. They all work at the same hospital in Dixon, and they're doing quite well. Going to Mass. They could be doing better, but they're doing great. I'm too Catholic according to me.
You mentioned the priest that you were counseled by.
Sure.
And then you also spent 2 years at Aquinas.
Yeah.
At what point did you finally make up your mind that you wanted to be a priest? And what was the greatest influence?
I remember I was sitting at the Dairy Queen in McEwen. The Dairy Queen is quite famous because you can get plate lunches. I mean, it's not like any other Dairy Queen in McEwen. And it was actually in 2008. I wasn't even Catholic yet. And I don't know if you know this, but there's like a regulation in the church that you cannot, a neophyte is the language, cannot be admitted into seminary until after 2 years of becoming a Catholic. But I always felt like even at that point, once I discovered the priesthood and the gift the priesthood had given to me, I just felt like, how could anybody want to do anything else? Because it's the greatest thing that you can give to anyone, and that's Jesus. Because Jesus was given to me, Jesus saved me, He pulled me out of my misery, and so it's like a boomerang. Like God's mercy just hit me, and it would be an injustice for me not to give that. So to answer your question, I was thinking about that even in RCA, even as a non-Catholic, as a catechumen. And at that point, it feels like what's Phil and I was talking to a gentleman a while ago. I feel like I'm on the runway right now at the airport, and we're taxiing, and the pilot's just about to. So that's what it feels like right now. And that really all started back at the Dairy Queen when I was talking out with that parish priest.
Was your golf game improved?
Well, it actually was quite good. I actually wanted to play college golf, but Rome has one golf course. It's like $200 a round. Yeah, so it's kind of gone south, but I hear Brentwood has some nice golf courses. Maybe I'll pay you back up. Are you a golfer? Oh yeah, scratch golfer.
Question way in the back.
Sure.
I was wondering if you know, or you would be willing to tell us the first time that you became conscious that you were having an encounter with Jesus, and what was that about? What was that like?
Sure. First time I had an encounter with Jesus. The first, I think it was through the priesthood. When I just, when I was meeting with this priest and just talking to him about my life and my struggles, I felt like it was the first time that anyone had ever listened to me. And I think we all hope to have some sort of experience that's kind of other, something that's supernatural. But God works through the priest, and I really experienced God's mercy through that priest. And it's the reason I became a Catholic, because I felt the love of God. I felt healing in my soul at that point. I felt joy, you know. And I believe joy is the most infallible sign of God's existence. But without joy, you know, without a God, there's no joy, there's no hope. And it was through that priest and in those meetings. I can't really point out one particular time when I said, when God kind of encountered me, but it was a journey. And it continues, it's still a journey. Even at my baptism, so I was baptized at that Easter Vigil, and I just remember feeling, I felt like I was glowing at the Easter Vigil when I was 18 years old. It was just a great experience to experience that at my baptism.
I have a couple more questions. Stand up, please. Why don't we just take two more? This young man is going to be a priest tomorrow.
Is the priest that counseled you, is he still involved in your life? And will he be at your ordination tomorrow?
No, he's a priest. He's not from here. He was actually on loan, and which is actually certainly a good thing. I think that he's a priest from Kentucky, and you know, and I think that's the beautiful thing about it is that he was not my savior, and he was not. I encountered God through him, and he gave me Jesus, and that's what a priest should be. A priest should never should be about himself. He should always be a John the Baptist, pointing the way to the Lord.
Does he know about
Oh, he knows about me, yeah. I didn't hide it.
And one last question.
We got these two.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I just have, my question is, you just defined a priest, but in this formation, how do you see yourself as a father? Because your name's going to change tomorrow. This relationship with your father, you're going to be a father to fathers.
Yeah.
You're going to be a father to all the kids.
Certainly.
How do you feel about that in the formation? Not the priestly part, the father.
Yeah, certainly. So, I was telling somebody the other day, my wife is about to give birth to billions. But to answer your question, so me as a father, the way I see it is a care for souls. So I am responsible, really, for the people in Brentwood under the care they're under my care. I'm responsible for their souls and their salvation. And so sometimes fathers, they have to reprimand people and say, don't do that because that's going to hurt you. Or that sometimes there needs to be encouragement. And both of these things I've encountered in my life. Now, I'm not a young whippersnapper that wants to come in and, like Jesus with the takes the whips and stuff. I'm not going to do that. Maybe once or twice. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, but I love people, and I love souls, and I desire that everyone is safe, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's the way I see myself as a father, to give my life, to lay my life down for the good of whoever comes to me and seeks spiritual counsel, and also the sacraments. I'm there to be available. This right here is a sign of availability. This sign is, come bug me, come ask me for help. And that's the way I see my fatherhood, as a fatherhood of availability and just being present to my children and my parish, and sowing seeds of hope and joy wherever that needs to be done.
The last question?
Bishop Spalding is new, just ordained in February. Will you be his first ordination?
Yes.
Yeah, I will be. I just hope he knows how to do it.
I tell you, he will be the youngest priest in the diocese. Let's all stand up, put your hands together. We're appreciating